I thought you were supposed to wish on shooting stars.
But I did.
But we only saw one.
But you see a lot of them up here at night.
Behind Mayberry's sweet little charm, something much darker was hiding. A secret that never made it to your screen. Why did one of TV's most beloved actresses die surrounded by mystery? And why did Andy Griffith take something important to the grave? This isn't the happy story you remember. This is the truth they never wanted you to hear. There was love, there was betrayal, and in the end, there was heartbreak. So what really happened to Aneta Corsaut? And how deep was Andy Griffith involved? Let's dive in. It's the early 1960s. America's falling in love with a sleepy little town called Mayberry. Every week, millions turn on the Andy Griffith Show to escape into small-town peace, a few laughs, and Andy's calm, fatherly charm. But behind the black and white smiles and picture-perfect scenes, something much more intense was going on. Aneta Corsaut, graceful, smart, and stunning, played Helen Crump, the town schoolteacher. On screen, she slowly wins over Sheriff Andy Taylor's heart. But behind the scenes, she may have been stealing the real Andy's heart too. Aneta wasn't just any actress, but when she walked onto the set in 1963, everything changed. She became a household name almost overnight. Joining in season 3 as Helen Crump, Aneta captivated fans. She had this calm power, a quiet confidence that matched Andy's relaxed nature perfectly. Their chemistry? Absolutely magnetic. But here's the twist. It wasn't all acting. Whispers started fast. Soon those quiet rumors exploded. People believed Aneta and Andy were actually together off-screen. And what came next? Even more shocking. The secret affair with Andy Griffith. To the world, they were Sheriff Taylor and Helen Crump, Mayberry's perfect couple. But what fans didn't know is that their love didn't stop when the cameras did. In fact, that's when it really began. It wasn't hard to spot something deeper happening. The way Andy looked at Aneta in scenes, the way she smiled a little too long. You can't fake that kind of energy. Their characters slowly grew close over seasons, from co-workers to parenting little Opie together. But in real life, the bond was already there. Way before their first scripted kiss, Andy and Aneta were falling for each other off-screen. And it wasn't just a rumor. People on set saw it. Cast and crew noticed their private chats, their long stares, and those quiet moments between takes. They weren't sneaking off into trailers like a messy Hollywood scandal, but it was clear something more was going on when they were alone. But here's the problem. Andy Griffith was married. While America adored the noble Sheriff Taylor, Andy had a wife back home, Barbara Griffith. They'd been married since 1949. Barbara even helped behind the scenes, and their son appeared briefly on the show. But as the series exploded in popularity, things at home reportedly started falling apart. And that's when Aneta stepped into the picture. Now, we're not here to judge. Hollywood love stories are never simple. But what's wild is how open it all seemed behind closed doors. People on set noticed. They talked. Some felt weird about it. Don Knotts, who played Barney Fife, especially seemed uneasy. Multiple sources claimed Don didn't feel comfortable around Aneta. Maybe it was tension, maybe loyalty to Barbara, or maybe he just didn't like how different things felt when Aneta was around. Either way, it changed the energy on set. Andy was known for being warm and funny, but he also had a serious, sometimes fiery side. When it came to Aneta, he didn't play around. He fell hard. Some biographers even claimed he proposed to her more than once. But each time, she said no. That part was never confirmed by either of them. Still, the rumors refused to die down. Aneta never married. Ever. Some say she didn't want a traditional role of a Hollywood wife. Others think she saw Andy's marriage falling apart and didn't want to be the one blamed. Or maybe she just knew the truth. That love in the spotlight rarely lasts, and what they had was better left undefined. Let's make one thing clear. This wasn't just a fling. It was real, it was emotional, and it lasted long after the show ended. What's crazy is how little fans knew at the time. This was before the internet, before paparazzi followed stars everywhere. No online gossip sites, no breaking stories every hour. So most people believed the fairy tale, Andy and Helen, a sweet on-screen romance. And that helped the show work. That blurry line between actor and character kept the illusion alive. But for the people who were there, who watched the relationship grow in real time, this wasn't fiction. This was a real love story. One that was complicated, messy, and impossible to ignore. Some cast members didn't know how to feel. Others just stayed out of it. So here's the big question. Why did Aneta walk away from love, from fame, even from marriage? Was it fear? Was it wisdom? Or was it something far more tangled? Her early life might hold clues you never expected. And it's there that the answers begin to take shape. Aneta Corsaut's story didn't begin under studio lights or red carpets. It began in Hutchinson, Kansas, Heartland, America. Born in 1933, she was raised in a modest Midwestern home, far from the glitz of Hollywood. But even in those early days, something about her stood out. She had a quiet magnetism, sharp, observant, and deeply curious. That curiosity quickly bloomed into a love for performance. While many around her were content with small-town life, Aneta had bigger dreams. She wasn't waiting to be discovered. She chased it. First stop, Northwestern University, where she studied drama at one of the country's top programs. But even that wasn't enough. She later enrolled in courses at UCLA, immersing herself in the craft, not just the industry. She wasn't looking for quick fame. She was deliberate. While her peers scrambled for any screen time, Aneta trained, studied, and waited, making sure she was ready before ever stepping into the spotlight. Her big break? Surprisingly, it came in horror. In 1958, she debuted in The Blob alongside a then-unknown Steve McQueen. The film was low-budget and campy, but it worked, and Aneta stood out. As Jane Martin, the sweet but brave teenage girl fighting off an alien menace, she didn't just scream on cue. She brought depth and presence to a genre not known for either. Hollywood took notice. From there, Aneta began building a career the smart way. Slow, steady, and on her terms. She took roles in shows like Death Valley Days, Gunsmoke, and Bonanza. These weren't throwaway appearances. They were stepping stones. And each time, Aneta delivered. Directors appreciated her professionalism. Co-stars admired her calm strength. In an industry of big egos, she was quietly unshakable. Then, in 1963, everything changed. Aneta Corsaut was cast in The Andy Griffith Show. At first, the role of Helen Crump was meant to be a one-off, just another character passing through Mayberry. But from her very first scene with Andy Griffith, something clicked. Their chemistry was undeniable. It wasn't just acting, it was real, warm, and electric. Producers noticed. Helen Crump became a recurring character, and eventually, Andy Taylor's love interest. But Aneta didn't play Helen like just another girlfriend character. She gave her grit, intelligence, and subtle fire. In a show known for small-town sweetness, Helen was sharp and articulate. She didn't need saving. She challenged Andy. She challenged everyone. And the audience loved her for it. Behind the scenes, the spark wasn't all make-believe. Whispers began to circulate. Was there something more between Aneta and Andy? They never confirmed it publicly, but the energy on screen said enough. And just like that, a one-time guest role became a performance that would define her career and quietly change television history. What's most striking about Aneta Corsaut's rise to fame is how quietly it happened. She didn't crash onto the scene with scandal. She didn't chase the spotlight or stir up drama. She got there because she was good, really good. In a time when women on TV were often boxed into cliches, damsels, sidekicks, punchlines, Aneta brought something different. She had poise, independence, a quiet strength that you could feel through the screen. Her fame wasn't explosive. It was earned. And by the mid-1960s, Aneta Corsaut had gone from a curious, intelligent girl in Kansas to a household name in American homes. But she didn't let fame chew her up like it did so many others. She played the long game, with grace, intention, and a kind of confidence that didn't need to scream to be heard. She became part of Mayberry's charm. But what happened when the credits rolled? Life after Mayberry. When the Andy Griffith Show faded into reruns and nostalgia, the cast each went their own way. Don Knotts leaned into film. Andy Griffith rebranded himself for a new era. And Aneta? She stepped back, not because she was forgotten, but because she chose to. She never wanted to be the it girl. She didn't need paparazzi or magazine spreads. But that doesn't mean she disappeared. If anything, her post-Mayberry years are a quiet lesson in loyalty, mystery, and staying true to yourself. Here's the twist most people don't know. Years later, long after Mayberry was just a memory, Andy Griffith brought Aneta back into his world. This time, it was on Matlock. Not just once, multiple times. And she didn't play throwaway characters either. She played women who were smart, commanding, and sharp. Exactly the kind of role she deserved. Their scenes weren't romantic, but the spark was still there. The comfort, the history. It felt like watching two old friends pick up right where they left off. And maybe they had, because it says a lot that Andy kept finding room for her in his work. Not everyone gets invited back into a television legend's inner circle, but Aneta did, repeatedly. There were no headlines, no declarations, just mutual respect. A kind of quiet loyalty that Hollywood doesn't show often. She stayed busy on her own terms. Outside of Matlock, Aneta kept working carefully, intentionally. She made appearances on Gunsmoke, Columbo, Emergency, all big shows of time. She wasn't Helen Crump anymore. She was a worried mother, a sharp-tongued witness, a no-nonsense nurse. No matter the role, she grounded every scene with that same unmistakable energy. Still, she never became a traditional celebrity. No red carpets, no tell-all interviews, no tabloid scandals. And that only deepened the mystery. She never married, never had kids. There were no public romances, no messy breakups, nothing. Some whispered she had been in love with Andy Griffith, that she turned down his proposals but never really moved on. Others believed she chose solitude on purpose. Maybe, after decades of pretending on screen, she just wanted to be herself. Whatever the reason, Aneta Corsaut stayed private in a world that feeds on exposure. And that's what makes her so unforgettable. She disappeared without a sound. It's ironic, really. She spent years playing a woman who was always caught up in someone else's storyline. But when it came to her life, she stayed in control. Every decision was hers. Every boundary respected. She didn't shout. She didn't plead for attention. She let her work speak. And maybe that's why the end of her story feels so haunting, because in the end, she vanished the same way she arrived. Quietly, intentionally, on her own terms. Beneath the quiet life she lived, beneath the privacy she fiercely protected, was a final chapter no one was ready for. It was early November 1995, just 3 days after celebrating what should have been a peaceful 62nd birthday. Aneta Corsaut was gone. It wasn't sudden, but no one knew how serious it was. Because in classic Aneta fashion, she kept it all to herself. She had been fighting cancer, silently, privately, no press release, no dramatic goodbye, just quiet strength. The same strength she brought to every role. She carried it into her final days. Most people still saw her as Helen Crump, the calm, whip-smart schoolteacher from the Andy Griffith Show. But those closest to her, they saw something even deeper. A woman who lived and died on her own terms. Cancer didn't get to steal her spotlight. Aneta didn't let it. Even as her health faded, very few people knew how serious things had become. Her TV appearances had slowed, but no one expected the worst. So when the news broke on November 6, 1995, it felt like a gut punch. Not just because she was still young, but because she had managed to fight such a brutal battle without ever asking for sympathy. She died in Studio City, California. Quiet, peaceful, just 3 days after her birthday. Aneta Corsaut was laid to rest at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery in North Hollywood. There were no flashing cameras, no media circus, just a simple, heartfelt goodbye, exactly how she would have wanted it. Though her death was private, the heartbreak that followed was anything but. Fans across the country were crushed. People who had grown up watching her on their living room TVs, who had smiled at Helen Crump's sass and heart, were now left with an aching silence. Tributes poured in, Co-stars, producers, old friends. Many didn't go public, but in interviews that followed, you could hear in their voices. And Andy Griffith? He never made a grand, emotional statement. But those who knew him said her death hit hard. This wasn't just a co-star. She was the woman he had once loved, the woman he had wanted to marry. She had been part of every chapter of his life, whether the cameras were rolling or not. Some even say Andy kept a photo of her on his desk for years after she passed. True or not, one thing is certain. Aneta Corsaut wasn't just a footnote in Andy Griffith's life. She was a cornerstone. But here's the part that still stings. The media didn't roll out the red carpet when she died. There were no magazine covers, no special tributes, no tearful montages on primetime television, just a few paragraphs, a short obituary buried deep in the entertainment section, and then silence. It was as if Hollywood had moved on, while the audience she touched never forgot. Fans still remembered her soft Midwestern voice, the way she lit up the screen without ever needing to shout. She was talented, respected, a key part of one of the most beloved shows in American history. But because she lived quietly, because she stayed out of tabloids, she didn't get the grand farewell so many of her peers received. Her death didn't trend. It didn't dominate the headlines, but it mattered. It mattered to the people who grew up with her, to those who found comfort in her steady presence on screen. And maybe that's what makes her story so powerful. She didn't need to be loud. She didn't chase fame. And still, she left a mark. Her legacy wasn't built on scandals or awards, but on connection. Genuine, lasting connection. Even today, when a rerun of The Andy Griffith Show comes on, fans still smile when Helen Crump walks into the classroom. There's a softness in her voice, a strength in her stare, a calm intelligence that feels timeless. And that's the power of a performance that came from the heart. Aneta Corsaut's Helen wasn't loud. She wasn't trying to be glamorous or edgy. She just was smart, capable, grounded. She made intelligence look cool without making it a show. She didn't chase attention. She simply existed with confidence. And for a lot of women watching, Helen was a breath of fresh air. Now, we're not saying she single-handedly changed TV, but let's be honest. Long before The Mary Tyler Moore Show or Murphy Brown gave us bold, complex female leads, Helen was already doing it, with less screen time and way fewer monologues. She showed us something important, that a woman could be smart and warm, independent and loving, part of a romance without losing herself in it. Think about her relationship with Andy Taylor. It wasn't one-sided. She challenged him. She stood her ground. She didn't back down when something felt wrong. And fans noticed. Even decades later, Helen Crump is still one of the most talked about characters from the series. Online threads, convention shout-outs, fan pages filled with love. People still feel something when she steps into that Mayberry classroom. She had presence, without making it about herself. In a show filled with charm and simplicity, Helen brought a dose of realness. She didn't just elevate the Andy Griffith Show. She gave Andy himself depth. Their scenes together were electric, even when nothing dramatic happened, because she demanded more from him. And in doing that, she gave the audience more, too. Aneta Corsaut didn't steal the spotlight. She shared it with precision, with stillness, with purpose. That's not just acting. That's artistry. So here we are, decades later, still watching, still remembering, still smiling. When Helen walks into frame, she wasn't just a sheriff's girlfriend. She was a fully formed character at a time when most women on television weren't given that privilege. Helen Crump started as a one-off character, but she became something more, a quietly revolutionary figure in TV history. And as long as The Andy Griffith Show lives on, as long as fans keep loving her with the same gentle affection she brought to every scene, her legacy will never fade. She wasn't just part of Mayberry. She was part of what made it matter. But what if the magic was real? Because now, knowing everything we know, what if that on-screen magic between Helen Crump and Andy Taylor wasn't just good writing? What if that look in her eyes, that sly smile, that chemistry that lit up their scenes wasn't entirely scripted? What if, behind all the quiet glances and gentle teasing, a real love story was unfolding behind the scenes? For decades, fans have whispered the same question. Was there something real between Andy Griffith and Aneta Corsaut? On screen, they were the perfect small-town couple, the gentle sheriff and the sharp schoolteacher. But off screen, that's where things get complicated. Some say it was all acting. Others, they're not so sure. Because the chemistry was too good. Their scenes together felt different. Like something deeper was bubbling just beneath the surface. There was a warmth, a closeness, a way they looked at each other that didn't feel rehearsed. Even casual viewers noticed it. And people close to the production, they've hinted for years that Andy and Aneta shared more than just scripts. Private dinners, late-night chats behind trailers, moments that felt too intimate to be just professional. Even Don Knotts, Andy's closest friend, once reportedly said their connection felt too familiar. And then there's this. Years after the Andy Griffith show ended, Andy brought Aneta back. For Matlock, of all the actors he could have picked, he chose her. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe it was something more. But here's where it gets murky. Some biographies say the whole story is overblown, that it's just fan fiction wrapped in rumor. They point out the lack of evidence. No love letters. No scandal. No tabloid headlines. And Aneta? She never said a word. No interviews. No memoirs. No tell-all books. She kept quiet, either to protect the truth, or because there wasn't anything to protect. And fans still wonder, if they loved each other, why didn't they end up together? Andy divorced. Aneta never married, but they never publicly reunited. No grand confession. No second-chance love story. Why? Was it timing? Fear? Loyalty? Or maybe, just maybe, what they shared was never meant for the spotlight.